Welcome to Retirement with Jim. So today we'll talk about where do you get your source of information when you're working on wanting to get retired. So before we get started, if you like my channel, hit the like and subscribe. It helps my channel grow. And feel free to leave comments. Love to hear from you, what you agree, disagree, things you might want to hear about. So with that, let's get started. So where is your source of information that as you prepare yourself for retirement? Where does it come from? You do your research, a lot of it comes from, the internet, of course. People look stuff up and research, all kinds of topics. But also a valuable piece of information, that can come to you quite easily is from your elders, from people who have lived it. You gotta ask yourself, why not? They're a great source of people who have gone through all kinds of stuff. Let me tell you about the good, the bad, especially those that are successful. What have they done, to successfully, navigate through their life and into retirement? How they do in retirement, and especially those that have done well. You got to say to yourself, I'm going to ask them. How did you do it? What did you do? Maybe what were some of the pitfalls? What were some of the things that, that really you hit on that were very successful? Our culture here in America is a little different than some other cultures. We don't necessarily, especially more and more as time goes by, we don't look to the older generation as a source of information. I think we personally that we should. A lot of the next generation wants us to just quietly fade away. And I'm going to tell you that ain't going to happen. But along with that, we have a different culture here in this country about what we feel about how we take care of the elderly and what they do. So it begs the question, where does your source of information come from? I know that in my 48 years of management, I help a lot of younger generation, younger guys who maybe had not really found their way. And one of the most important things I would pass on to them is, what are you passionate about? What makes you happy? Because if this job you're doing is just a job, then it's not necessarily making you happy. It's a way to pay bills. And so trying to impart some knowledge to the next generation about what makes you happy, find that, and if you can make money at that, then God bless you, you're successful. My own son was going to school for one thing, and he was, of course, maybe wanting to make mom and dad happy, but later on, it's like, is that what you really want to do? And of course, it did not turn out to be that. So you're not going to upset us. Just go and do what you're happiest with, which is what he did. And now he has got a much happier life, and he's doing well for himself. But it just begs the question, what are you doing? Where are you getting that information from? Because I think there are plenty of the older generation that really can be a great source of information to the next generation about what they've done to be successful. And it isn't, of course, it's all about hard work and planning. But along the way, you want to have fun. You want to enjoy your life. So it's like, what can you do? What little steps, and what have they done? What have they gone through? I think that there's not enough people that, look to that sage advice. I am always going to give somebody what I think is common sense advice. And, of course, common sense is, it's not something you learn. You kind of either have it or you don't. And, what's common sense to me is of course not necessarily common sense to someone else. Well, that's no offense to them. Maybe they don't have that intuitive skill to be able to go, oh, I should go left versus right. This would be a good investment to make. When you're looking at your investments as you're trying to, grow your 401k, plan for your future. How many people are planning for their future? And I think plenty of them, are a lot more in tune to, okay, I got to start early. That part I think has improved. It wasn't so much, when I was younger. I was at the tail end of, what pensions being available, and I don't have a pension. So it took me, my 401k, my work, my planning. But that is where this country has gone to. It has gone to, investing in a 401k to invest in your future, and planning. So, I think that you might want to look around, and maybe you don't want to ask somebody who's in your family who's older, although they are and can be a great source of information. But certainly, and I'm not saying just because I'm older, I'm an expert on anything, but I can tell you some of the things that I've done and not done. And certainly, like for instance, I wished I had started maybe 10, even 15 years earlier. Because as much as I might be, comfortable enough right now, I could have saved and amassed a lot more money in my 401k. So certainly that was a regret. And all of that was because, they really didn't teach us. You kind of learned on your own. Even in the 401k, it's not been around for a long, long time. And so when I first started, the employers were just as much in the dark and not as educated as, you would hope that they would be. They answer questions, encourage you more, to get in, and, things like, take the employer match if you have it. There are many things that need to be learned. Again, I guess for me, I kind of go back to, I think that they should be teaching these investments and the 401k and this management. They should start as early as high school and get people to understand what their future and their future self is going to need. So living longer requires more education. It requires more knowledge. It requires more planning for what you want to do, what you need to do, so that you can live a very comfortable retirement and not worry as much and just enjoy the latter part of your life. And if it offers you the opportunity to retire early, then so be it. That's great. If you've got, some plans for yourself and they don't involve work, and as well they shouldn't. There's another part of life that comes along after work is done. And the sooner you can get into it and enjoy it, you'll be amazed at how much more stress-free your life is. But part of that is, where do you get that from? And I think that personally, I believe that it's an untapped resource that the older generation, which really has gone through a lot and lived through a lot, can really teach the next generation. So let me know what you think. I personally think that is an underused source and asset, but let me know if you agree or disagree. So I'm going to tell you, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.